Into every generation there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, demons, and forces of darkness. She is the Slayer. That's right, it's the Buffy episode.
Once upon a time in a fabulous land, where morals are sparkly and fables are grand. Aesop's tales with a wise man's twist, serving wisdom on a glittery dish.
Hello my Fabies, and welcome back to Aesop's Fables, which is normally your spot on the internet for classic tales with a modern gay twist. I'm Matt, your modern day fabulist, but as I've said all along, I'm also a pop culture devotee. And this week, I will not be telling fables. In this very special bonus episode, I will be revisiting the first 4 fables, the morals, and the psychology behind them through the lens of the only pop culture that matters, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I first saw it in 1997. I was at my nan's house. I was 11 years old. It was partway through season 1. There were puppets running around. There were cheerleaders being murdered at Sunnydale High, and I was hooked. I would record each week's episode on VHS, ads included, and watch it rigorously throughout the week after the episode in anticipation for the next one. I then upgraded to renting the ad-free VHS videos from my local Video Easy, and eventually in 2003, when my father finally capitulated and bought a DVD player, I started renting the DVDs. I then bought the DVDs and waited with anticipation in 2004 for season 7 to come out on DVD and for my collection to be complete. My poor parents, my poor sister, my poor friends were surrounded by everything Buffy. But I think it has stood the test of time. I wouldn't say Buffy saved my life, the doctors did that, but I would say it will always hold a special place in my heart for being very integral to me and my identity development at a very delicate age. Not that I'm that close to figuring that out. I'm closer to figuring it out. And I'm not here to gush about my favorite character. It's Willow. And I'm not here to rag on my least favorite character, Xander. Or even to gush about the powerhouse performances of Sarah Michelle Gellar, Alison Hannigan, Anthony Stewart Head, Emma Caulfield, the late great Michelle Trachtenberg. Yeah, I like Dawn. The end of season 6 and all of season 7, I like Dawn. We're going to revisit the first 4 fables I've written, and using the morals as a guide, I'm going to pick one Buffy character whose story arc best represents that moral. In episode 1, we were introduced to the little gay fox, and that little was bullied so hard that even when he moved to the city, he was turned off by other animals being interested in him. He wanted a relationship, but was terrible at them, so told himself he didn't want one, even though we know he did. A classic case of cognitive dissonance where our beliefs clash with our actions. He believed he was capable of a relationship, fucked it up, and then to alleviate that dissonance, to relieve the dissonance, then told himself that he wasn't interested in a relationship. He changed his beliefs to match his actions, being shit at a relationship. The moral of this story was that telling yourself you don't want something because you can't get it is not the same as wanting something. We talked about how you actually just have to figure out a way to get it. And when thinking about cognitive dissonance in Buffy, the best example, in my opinion, is the story arc of Rogue Slayer Faith in season 3. Faith Lahane, which I learned was her name years after completing the series, steamrolled into Buffy season 3 as a force of nature. She was called as the next Slayer in line after ambiguous Caribbean Slayer Kendra died of a paper cut in the 2-part season finale of season 2. Faith was sassy, damaged, fiery, and vulnerable. Over the course of early season 3, she tried to be good. She had edge, she did things differently to Buffy, but overall, she tried to be good. Ultimately, she was on the side of the Scoobies, but she didn't always feel embraced or welcomed by them. Faith loved slaying much more than Buffy. When she would fight, she would get lost in the violence and tap into a darkness that Buffy was afraid to. But as much as she tried to be good, she couldn't be Buffy. Her belief was that she was a good slayer, but she couldn't be the best or the first. In the episode Bad Girls, one night while the Slayers were out taking a bit of a walk on the wild side, Faith accidentally staked a human through the heart. From a cognitive dissonance perspective, this was a turning point. Though tempted by darkness and confused, up until now, she had always been able to rein it in and stay on the good side. She was aligned with her self-belief that she was a good slayer because her actions were good. But now she had done something so bad, she could no longer see herself as good. And Faith thought, well, if I can't be good, I'll be bad. After she slayed Mr. Trick, she approached the mayor and asked him about his job opening, and thus began her journey as the Rogue Slayer, a series of violent acts, betrayals, culminating in a rain-soaked plea to Angel in an alleyway to kill her. She then started her redemption arc, going to prison, and from a cognitive dissonance perspective, this can be seen as her adjusting her actions to be good again, to really affirm and align that belief that she is good. She no longer told herself she was fundamentally bad. She told herself she can be good.
You protecting vampires? Are you the bad slayer now? Am I the good slayer now?
In the second episode, we were introduced to the sexy hummingbird who started getting a taste for the nectar of the dragon flower. He made a group of friends who were also interested in the nectar, and he found himself sleepwalking through his weeks in anticipation for a Saturday night. It was a complex metaphor, I understand, very deep, very hard to decipher from the gay scene. We talked about the role of belonging in the gay scene, the idea that rituals can engender belonging, but can also keep you very trapped in a pattern of behavior. The moral of this one was to not sacrifice 6 days for that one day, and I ended what quickly became a lecture encouraging people to find a sense of belonging to themselves as well as to community. And which Buffy character had the biggest struggle with self-belonging? In my opinion, it was Willow. Willow was in all 144 original episodes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and started off as the sidekick, the best friend of the beautiful main lead who struggled with self-confidence and self-worth. Over the seasons, we saw her grow from this wallflower to the ultimate evil, attempting to end the world, to white-haired goddess empowering all the potential slayers in the world. At the end of season 2, she cast a spell to restore Angel's soul, and throughout season 3, she described a sort of portal opened within her of magic that she was honing and practicing and getting better. She went from floating pencils, as I said, to trying to end the world and being the ultimate big bad of season 6. And season 6 was where all of her magic use really came to a head. She used memory spells on Tara, she used magic to complete daily tasks. She was really quite lost in the magic scene. And when Tara left her, she lost the only anchor she seemed to have to reality. She was adrift in her addiction. As you can imagine, the magic scene was full of rituals, from the spells themselves to the way it was used in everyday life. She didn't just use magic routinely, she used it ritualistically. It meant something to her to be using it. It meant some sort of power and status, not just efficiency of tasks. We saw this in her argument with Giles when he returned after she'd resurrected Buffy, and she told him how powerful she was and even borderline threatened him with that power. When Tara had left, and Willow was deep in the magics, she contemplated who she is without them. To her, why would you be plain old Willow when you could be Super Willow? Buffy said, well, I liked plain old Willow just fine, but it did fall on deaf ears a little bit. Willow didn't belong to herself. in lots of ways, even though she had chopped her hair into a fashion bob and had started wearing tighter, more revealing clothes, some with crazy patterns, some without. She still at her core was that high school loser who couldn't stand up for herself. We saw this in season 4's finale, Restless, where Willow in her dream was constantly being accused of being a fraud by everyone around her, culminating in Buffy actually tearing her outfit off her, revealing season 1 Willow below. Willow didn't see herself as worthy without the magic. She didn't feel a sense of belonging to the group. She didn't feel a sense of usefulness. She didn't feel a sense of purpose. She didn't know who she would be without the magics. But as we saw in season 6, she quit after injuring Dawn and going to a really dark place. She realized that her friends still needed her. She was conducting research the old-fashioned way. She still was instrumental in exposing the trio, and she was even able to win over Tara and regain back her trust. And all was well, and nothing else happened that season.
Baby? Baby, come on! Get up!
In the 3rd episode, we met a poor little hungry koala who was learning how to feed himself. Without proper guidance, all he could do was look around the bush and see what other animals were eating. But it didn't work for him. Only when he got up the courage to try the gum leaves, even though no other animal eats them, did he realize, oof, I'll never go hungry again. The moral of that episode was that what feeds others is not necessarily what feeds you. You can try out what other people are doing, but ultimately you need to feed your own soul. We talked about the chameleon effect, we talked about social learning, and briefly we touched on mimetic desire. Now when it comes to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the greatest non-conformity arc in my opinion is season 2's Miss Cordelia chase. We were first introduced to Cordelia in the pilot, and for most of season 1, you could consider her Buffy's secondary antagonist after the Master. At the end of season 1, she became aware of the supernatural, and gradually throughout season 2, she got more and more involved in the Scooby plots. She always had a slightly vicious back and forth with Xander. It started off as mean, but it started to build to some sort of sexual tension. And in the two-parter What's My Line, under some extreme circumstances where they were trapped in a basement about to be devoured by a man who was also made out of worms, they kissed. Against either of their wills, they seemingly enjoyed it. Both denied the attraction to one another and kept it hidden from their respective friendship groups. Eventually, the Scoobies found out, and just as Xander and Cordelia were starting to feel accepting of one another, Cordelia's popular girlfriends found out. They made fun of Cordelia, and she dumped Xander on Valentine's Day. But this conformist side of Cordelia was always there. In season 1, she made a big speech about feeling like she had to perform to belong. She talked about how lonely she felt in this performance, and when Buffy asked her, well, why do you do it? She said, well, it's better than being alone all by yourself. And even though she was technically the leader of the popular girls, she couldn't do what she wanted. Even in season 1 episode, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, when she was attacked by the invisible girl, she was rescued by Buffy. And when she was thanking Buffy at the end, when the popular kids came up, her boyfriend Mitch, I think his name was, came up and Harmony and said, what are you doing talking to these losers? She immediately deflected and said she was giving them fashion advice, and she called them a social leper colony. She immediately went back to the status quo. So after dumping Xander, of course, he did what any rational person would do and find a witch, blackmail her, and cast a love spell to try and win back the girl that just dumped him. It's not toxic at all. But the spell didn't work, and it actually made every woman who wasn't Cordelia inexplicably attracted to Xander. She finds out that it was her who was supposed to be the subject of the spell, and she's touched. Gestures of magical manipulation are the key to this woman's heart. The following day, she is with her popular girlfriends at school and they're being typically bitchy about other students, and Cordelia snaps. She calls out her friend Harmony's behavior. She identifies herself as the trendsetter and Harmony as the sheep. Side note, speaking of sheep, my friend and I were once in the back of a cab leaving a bar to go to another party, and this other guy jumped in the car with us, and he was a loose acquaintance. And we were on our iPhones and he pulled out his Android and he called us sheep. And we said, well, what are you? He goes, I'm not a sheep, I'm a sheep leader. And we were like, are you trying to say shepherd? So Cordelia says that she'll wear what she wants and she'll date whoever she wants, no matter how lame he is. She decided to no longer conform, but that didn't mean she had to give up all of her popular girl traits. She was still her, she was just doing her in her own way. And she carried these traits over to Angel, where she discovered the love she has for helping others, and then she ascended to a higher plane at the end of season 3, and nothing happened in season 4 or 5.
Being this popular is not just my right, but my responsibility, and I want you to know I take it very seriously.
And finally, last week, we spent some time with a tortoise and a hare as they met and immediately went into an anxious avoidant cycle. Ooh. The tortoise moved slowly in relationships and the hare rushed things. Clever. They made each other worse and eventually stopped seeing each other. The moral of the story was that cycles can be broken, and no one did this better than our main girl, Buffy Ann Summers. Now, a major spoiler, but Buffy is a vampire slayer. She starts the show as a 16-year-old girl who has been expelled from her school in LA, and her and her mum have moved to the fictional Southern California town of Sunnydale. She meets new friends, she meets her new watcher, and wackiness ensues. She also meets a mysterious stranger, Angel. The vampire with a soul and an avoidant attachment style. Season 1 and the first half of Season 2 is a classic romantic will they, won't they scenario, or the push-pull dynamics of an anxious avoidant cycle. We'll let them off for the second half of Season 2 because Angel's evil and there's a whole separate relationship metaphor going on there. She kills Angel, as you do, but it doesn't last. But they're back in Season 3, straight back into the push, pull, advance, retreat. Buffy constantly seeks closeness and reassurance. Angel invites her in and then keeps her at a distance. Toward the end of Season 3, Angel's starting to feel pressured by how into him Buffy is, even though he's just as into her. He's scared of a lifelong commitment, he brings up things like their age, they're all reasonable, but this avoidant behavior has been there the entire time. He's constantly telling her she can do better. This culminates towards the end of the season in him having a dream of her on their wedding day, and after their vows they go outside, he stands in the sun and she burns to death from the heart outwards. This leads to him breaking up with her in a sewer, and then he leaves the show at the end of the season for his own spin-off. In classic avoidant behavior, he pops up from time to time to check on her, to start fights with her new partner Riley. In times of her great sorrow and sadness, we'll give him that one, that's fine. But this is what avoidants do. Just as you're forgetting about them, they message. In a Season 4 episode, we can see the toll that this has taken on Buffy, and we get more of a glimpse into her sort of anxious attachment dynamic. When she starts to see Riley, she's walking through a cemetery with Willow one night, and she's surprised at how easy it is. We've seen this on Sex and the City as well, where Carrie's with Aiden and just looks for problems. And Buffy thinks, well, if it's not emotionally challenging, is it worth it? But Buffy grows. She goes through other things. She has a horribly toxic relationship with Spike, and at the end of Season 7, Angel appears, saves her life, whatever, and he's finally ready for commitment. But Buffy isn't. She's cookie dough. She has outgrown his pull and decides that she wants to spend some time with herself first.
Be a long time coming. Years if ever.
So what's your take on my take? Let me know in the comments, subscribe, like. I'll be back next week with an original fable, The Wolf and the Tiger, where we look at gay friendships and chosen families. Have a moral week, everyone.
Twist, serving wisdom on a glittery dish. Gaze up's Fables, it's the tea, it's the show. Lessons in love with a fabulous glow. Quick wit, sharp, he'll strut the moral road. Gather round, hun, let the gay story unfold.